Okay, we are live again. I had to reset it. For some reason, it had kicked off YouTube and Kick, but we were still on Twitch. So I don't know what the big deal is, but I believe it's been fixed. And I've got a debunking for you here. So many of you have come across these tweets, which I haven't really commented on, where some guy says Cole Allen back in 2023. And this is the tweet that was said to have predicted the shooting at the White House. Then you have another guy named Soothsayer who said, 2023 Corona ends, 2026 hantavirus. That was posted last November. So these are two examples of tweets that are predicting the future. And a lot of people are talking about this stuff, and I think they might be false positives, truth or bait. I don't take it to mean that the insider on these scripted events is dropping clues for the future. This is a common occurrence where people say, well, the news already knew the name of the shooter, and they'll misread the Google search results, which take a spike in something like a name and then kind of average it out over a few days, even retroactively. And so it's kind of a glitch or an indexing error. But anyway, this has been happening with a lot of these recent events. So it's been explained by Din Don Fiscal. He says these tweets that predict the future are purely fake. I'll explain how they do it and why. And it's actually quite simple. Thanks, Exploring, for the sound check. When I upload the archives, I'll just put part 1 and part 2. No big deal. By the way, phones are now open. 888-886-4629 or hoax. 888-886-HOAX. So here's how they do it. They create private accounts with thousands of tweets scheduled in advance. And these might be done with bots. So you create a fake private account and tweet, the next winner of the World Cup will be. The next epidemic will be called. And they build up these private accounts, and then when an event happens, they delete the rest of the tweets, only keeping the ones that got it right. So that's kind of what that there was a pastor who claimed he had a vision of Trump getting shot next to his ear. And of course, it turns out he predicted a lot of things, but he deleted all the other stuff and left that one, so it made him look like he was on target. Just like the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where they highlight the hits and ignore the misses, based on the idea that if you were to fire a bunch of rounds indiscriminately into the side of a barn, you could then draw a target after the fact around the closest grouping of rounds and then proclaim yourself a sharpshooter. Look at all these bullseyes. And that's what a lot of psychics do. So in this case, that's exactly what they're doing. They're firing a bunch of shots indiscriminately, making millions of predictions, and then when one is right, they circle it and delete the rest. It's clever. Now, why do they do this? To farm the stats. The real account will screenshot the tweet first and share it, and then the army of conspiracy theorists will flood in. The result is 100 to 150 million views in just a few hours. With monetization widespread, you're going to see more and more of it in a few months, and it's going to become a real problem. For every major event, somebody's going to pull a tweet from 2022 that predicted it. Is it funny? Yes. Is it profitable? Clearly. But it raises a huge problem. It fuels conspiracy thinking like never before. Should X moderate this manipulation, or do we let it slide in the name of free speech? Well, you have the right to be wrong. And the issue here is that the public is gullible, what I call maids. And when I was referencing a comment from earlier about how we are a cure, yeah, we really are. Because once you can identify the flawed logic that goes into these things, it all becomes very clear. So in this case, yeah, we're looking at Texas sharpshooter fallacy turned into a way to make a lot of money on X. And conspiracy theorists are a target demo. They are a market group. Like, I'm not in it. I'm not a conspiracy theorist for this reason. Because they don't require good evidence. They lead with their cognitive bias. You know, cog bias is a hell of a drug. They don't fact check if it's from their side. And then when they're proven wrong, they tend to cling on to the wrong answer until you force it out of their hands, really. They're like addicts. It's like, hey, that's wrong. That doesn't work. That's a lie. And they just cling. Bitter clingers. Okay, Representative Tim Burchett gets a phone briefing from Pete Hegseth. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., UFO disclosure. Should be 3:30. His words, quote, "I don't want people to get their hopes up." Oh. So you have all these truthers and religious nutcases doling out the hopium and the doom predictions. Because they want that. It's doom hope. You got hopium, hoping for some kind of revelation, everything's going to get better, we're going to be saved. And then you have doom hope. And doom hope is where they sell the world haters, the religious people, I guess, the disenfranchised, the idea that something really bad's going to happen. Because if the world's bad and you're not doing well in it, then you might benefit from it being destroyed. So it's kind of like hope in a way. But it's not a hope in something better. Oh, interesting. The Mean Street says your stream ended when you showed the cruise ship and said it's some kind of serious crisis acting. Well, it only ended on YouTube. You know, so we're still on Kick, we're still on Twitch, and we're still on X. So I just rebooted. But that kind of stood out to me as kind of weird. Because the connection was just fine. You know, we're not dropping frames from what I can see. I don't think we have any connection issues. Well, we'll see. And there is that creepy van that keeps driving around. Seems like we're good. Okay, so we'll just proceed. We were talking about hantavirus, and I think deer mice are cute. I really think they're adorable. All right, let's see here. So many of these UFO people are just charlatans. But, you know, this is a cult. And there used to be this cult near where I lived. There was a church. And they would often have predictions for the end of the world. And then they'd just bump it up and bump it up. And I'm like, don't people learn? Is there a turnover? What's the turnover for ufologists and UFO believers? It's actually zero. The lack of evidence is evidence of a cover-up, which is evidence that the thing is real. You see how that works? So it's real if they show it to you. It's real if they don't show it to you because it exists as a presumption. So they're just hiding it. That's why you have to not lead with the conclusion, because everything will prove that conclusion. And we see this with every kind of conspiracy theory. Take, for example, the J pills. So the J pill people are expecting evidence from Epstein, for example. They don't exactly get it, but that's enough for them because it proves it's being covered up. Truth Hurt says you got to watch out for ticks that make you red meat intolerant. Wonder if that's real or not. Now, wasn't there... I think there might have been something in Utopia. You know, the movie Utopia, where you had the... Let me think. It was like some kind of epidemic, but they basically sterilized everybody. And they used crisis actors in a fake event. But I think there might have been something with fake meat built into the storyline. Let me check Perplexity. In the movie Utopia, wasn't there something about fake meat and a virus? It went through one season and they didn't renew it, probably because the anti-vaxxers are the heroes at the end. Okay, listen to this. In 2020, a US remake of Utopia, there's a major plot line involving fake meat and a virus. Dr. Christie runs a synthetic meat company called Simpro. The story reveals a broader conspiracy tied to a man-made flu and a sterilizing vaccine plan. The fake meat company's part of his public image, and the virus plot is part of the hidden conspiracy behind the pandemic storyline. The meat is suspicious because outbreaks appear around the places where it's served. Yeah, I knew there was some kind of weird meat connection there. But that movie was great. I think at John Cusack. And it starts off, so if you haven't seen Utopia, it starts off, and I kind of identified with this group of comic book nerds who are obsessed with the comic book series that has this pandemic storyline. And they're noticing that the storylines in the comics are matching future viral outbreaks. So it's like, wait a minute here. That's predictive programming in a movie that contains concurrent programming for 2020. But what happens in the series is this group of comic book aficionados get an advanced copy of an unreleased comic. So they're looking at this thinking, okay, if these other ones have predicted the future, what about this one? Is this going to tell us what's to come? So now they're in possession of a script for an incoming psyop, which makes them dangerous, of course. I mean, imagine if we got a copy of the metascript and we could make accurate predictions. We make general predictions. We've been accurate many times, but you can see what I mean. It's problematic. So they send out some assassins, the government, the shadowy cabal behind the fake events. They send out an assassin named Arby, who I recall looks kind of Mark Sargent-y. Kind of interesting. I hope we can get him on soon. Well, anyway, Arby is the one who goes around killing anybody who's seen the comic. So it's like a mind virus, and they're trying to contact trace it. But anybody who's seen this page needs to be eliminated. It's pretty grotesque, actually. Enucleation. Some guy gets his eye ripped out with a spoon. So I remember it being really horrifying as far as the violence. But I remember thinking too, wait a minute here. They're killing the people who are paying too much attention to the predictive programming. All right, let's see here. Joined by X322, Pete Trippa, thanks for joining. Truth Hurts says, Utopia was wild in regards to the COVIDs. Well, yeah. And the fact that it came out in 2020. And at the very end, the main characters go to the Vax warehouse and they destroy them all so the population doesn't get sterilized. So they're heroes. But why were they sterilizing the human race? Climate change. I love how they combine all these psyops. Climate change, nukes, aliens, pandemics. So right now, I think we're getting served a cocktail of psyops, which is going to include viruses, like plagues, aliens, and nukes. And I don't know what else, but this Terminator 2 thing is really standing out to me as significant because they're going to blast that nuke scene onto big screens all over the place. And anything that they put into the consensus, anything they put on the world stage is in play. You look at this big chess game, and you look at the props, the pieces, the scenarios, and you can pretty much get the gist of it. Lord Laney says, a comic book style of Catcher in the Rye. Yeah, we talked about Catcher in the Rye recently. And yeah, I read that book a while ago trying to figure out what's the big deal about it. And one of the best explanations I have found, because it's associated with Mark Chapman, who killed Lenin, it's associated with Hinckley, who shot Reagan, Oswald, possibly, and some other guy who. There's a number of these mind controlled assassin types, or these mentally ill assassin types, who had the book on them. And the breakdown of Joseph Atwill suggests that it's a calling card, because the book contains subtexts regarding Masonic initiations, secret societies, and a dark secret society that assassinates its enemies. So you could look at it as a calling card. In other words, the assassin, and if you go back to the story of the assassins, so let me bring this up actually. According to the lore, like the old man in the mountain, the assassins, nothing is true, everything is permitted. Hassan Sabah, the leader of the Order of Assassins. According to their stories, the way they conducted their assassins is the would-be killer, or the one who's going to be set up to do the killing, the patsy essentially, or the assassin is going to be drugged and brought into some kind of trance, convinced that he's met God and that he's got this mission to kill this person. So the idea of the mind-controlled assassin, MK Ultra, really goes back to the Order of the Assassins, which has been very much associated with that video game, Assassin's Creed. Okay, so 11th to 12th century, a medieval leader associated with the Order of Assassins. The term assassins is tied to this group. There's some legends about it involving hashish and secret gardens, but these are debated. And that's what I'm referencing. The idea that there were these gardens that recreated some kind of paradise scene for the drugged assassin who's being convinced that he's given orders from above. The Old Man of the Mountain, one of his titles, but let me see if I can find some example of the mind control aspect of it. That's the part I'm honing in on here, is because the Manchurian Candidate story, as introduced in the movie, John Frankenheimer's film, seems to be rebooting this concept of the mind-controlled assassin. And supposedly that word, assassin, has some connection to hashish. So you have the drug and the mind control. It's widely treated as a myth. Okay, here we go. According to the lore, they were drugged with hashish before the killings. It became famous through a lot of stories, European writers, Marco Polo. So anyway, it's a contested legend, which is kind of irrelevant because it does fit into the body of lore that we're referencing here. The world stage is, basically built on a bunch of stories, and this is just one of these stories. This has also been connected with, I think, by a number of conspiracy writers. There's been this idea that the Knights Templar interfaced with this order and integrated their techniques into their repertoire. So, in other words, the idea of like the JFK assassination being a Masonic assassination by a mind-controlled patsy, that has this idea that, there were some overlapping with the secret societies and the sharing of their techniques. So it was a religious and political movement that became famous for its covert killings and resistance tactics. One of the stories was they would threaten the targets by putting a dagger in their bed. So they would wake up with a knife right there, and it would send a message that you're not safe, that we're everywhere. We're in your house, which is very effective apparently. Later writers turned Hassan into the Old Man of the Mountain. Stories about drugged recruits, paradise gardens became part of the mythology. I think it might all be mythology. Did Jacques de Molay really exist? Was he burned at the stake? Were the Templars disbanded on 322, 1312? That's an interesting one as well. 322, the Skull and Bones. But 1312. shows up, and I'm thinking, is that a Templar reference? Because 1312 was spray painted all over the walls in 2020 at the scenes of the riots. Thank you, P. Trippa, for feeding the Crackwin. IPS thanks you, says listening via satellite. Well, we are actually right now, we are on satellite, Starlink satellite. Whatever you think it is. But I want to clarify one thing. If you're going to allege, as I do, that it's more likely that you're getting it from a Satelloon, you have to keep in mind that Satelloons are stationary. They're above the stratosphere, above the weather. They can stay up there for like a year at a time. Loon X was a reality. And the only reason why Loon X was eventually canceled is that it wasn't economically viable, and then Starlink shows up. SpaceX takes over that space. So they go from the idea of ubiquitous stratospheric balloons to satellite. So I'm just pointing out here that I think it's equally plausible. So when you see strings of lights going across the sky, you're being told, well, those are, those are from Starlink. And it's like, well, I'm not so sure that you could argue that those are balloons, because balloons wouldn't be moving that fast, nor would they reflect so uniformly. But my explanation for a lot of sightings, whether it be satellites or these predictable or predicted ISS or Starlink transits, is that these could be easily faked. They're fakeable. So it should be known that even before Sputnik, even before the 1957 started the orbiting satellite thing, before that, the Air Force had already come up with a way to simulate objects in low Earth orbit for the benefit of ground-based astronomers tracking their movements. And this was done in an exercise called Needles in the Sky. If you haven't seen it, there's a good 15-minute video on it, Needles in the Sky. And what they did is they used regular, just small planes, dangling lights. And by moving at the right altitude and trajectory, they could create the perception that, yeah, this is what it would be like if it were 200 miles up. So the idea is, if you wanted to fake something, you would just have to coordinate with the planes, with the airplanes, and simulate a transit in front of an audience. Just like you theatrically launch a rocket in full view of the public, even though when it transitions into outer space, it's likely transitioning into a pre-produced CGI reel. A good example of this is Mousegate, which we haven't talked about in a long time, but we're talking about deer mice. So if you're not familiar with Mousegate, this was right leading up to COVID. It was called the CRS-19. It was December 5th, 2019. So leading up to 2020, Musk had sent this supply module to the space station. And on this mission, they were describing how they were sending genetically modified mice. And they said that these mice were modified to be resistant to the muscular atrophy associated with zero gravity. So here you have a bunch of mice that they called Mighty Mice being sent into space. Now, if you know the Mighty Mouse cartoon, Mighty Mouse was a mouse who flew through space, and he was, of course, very muscular. So they refer to these as the Mighty Mouse, the Mighty Mice. So the Mighty Mouse character is kind of invoked here. So a cartoon mouse in space, muscular mouse. So as this rocket is going up into orbit, a lot of people started noticing that there's a mouse on the outside of the rocket, like on the engine. Now, it's a mouse. It's got a tail, it's got ears, it oscillates like a mouse, it moves like a mouse. It's just a mouse. To say it's not a mouse is to kind of gaslight yourself. So when I showed this to Mick West, he said, oh no, that's not a mouse. That's a video compression artifact. Okay, and then later he retracted and he said, no, that's ice. That's ice. Okay, well, even if it's ice, it happens to be ice that at Mach 8 is forming into the shape of a mouse and moving around like a mouse. So there's no disputing that it looks and moves like a mouse, whatever your explanation for it is, because obviously it can't be a mouse on the outside of a rocket. But that's if you take for granted that you're looking at a live video feed of an actual rocket and not some pre-produced footage with an augmented reality CGI hoax integrated into it, which is what I think. I think it was a big hoax. I think it's a joke, rather, like an inside joke. Hey, let's put a mouse on the outside of the rocket, like Mighty Mouse. He's in space. It'd be funny. And I think it was contrived and fake. And if you think of the scale of it, it couldn't possibly be a mouse anyway, because compared to the engine, it would have been huge. And its proportions were really strange, like a wharf rat, maybe. But again, to me, that was one of the big indicators that this can't possibly be live. This is definitely the case where once the rocket's out of sight, out of mind, they just change the feed, turn on the cartoon. Nicholas says, I wonder how many lies tied to the belief system will be included in the slow UFO disclosure that's starting tomorrow. Well, the latest word is it's going to be a nothing burger. There's going to be a couple videos of blips on a radar. I think that's as deep as it's going. If you look on the screen here, this is my projection for tomorrow. There's Trump at a barbecue. He's got an alien bib, and he's surrounded by rabid conspiracy theorists, a mob with their tinfoil caps, and a bunch of people wielding crosses. And if you look at the plate there, there's nothing in between those buns. Nothing burgers. It'll be like Epstein. You know, they hyped up the Epstein, then they dashed your expectations. Oh, nope, sorry, nothing. That didn't change anything. The believers in it are going to believe. Believers are going to believe. Narrative before facts. It doesn't matter. To them, absence of evidence is evidence of a cover-up. And it's going to be the same tomorrow. So don't expect anything. Don't get your hopes up. I was going to mention this yesterday. Going back to the 2020 to 2022 era, a lot of the QAnoners were really big on aliens. They were convinced that there were various factions of aliens and that Musk was taking over Starlink because the internet was going to be shut down and they were going to do all kinds of stuff. He was capturing data about the election being stolen. I mean, these people lived on hopium. And I watched them. So I saw their addiction. I knew some of them. So they would go on a Twitter and they would tweet each other, thumbs up, American flag, cross, Q. And they'd say, the Great Awakening's coming. I have faith. And then the other people would hype them up. And they were always hyping each other up. Very culty. Nicholas says, slow to start from what I'm hearing, but it'll ramp up for the end of 2026 and then on to the next. Well, they said 60 to 90 days. Which just sounds to me like nothing's going to happen. But it's like a slow letdown. You'll get distracted. Something will happen in the next 90 days that will render the alien stuff irrelevant. Like maybe Jim Carrey will come back and the Botox will have settled in and he won't look as different. Like something will happen, something trivial will distract the conspirataned from the fact that they just got duped into watching a Steven Spielberg movie. But this is what they get. Like the other day, someone asked me what I think about the price of gas. Am I mad about it? Am I mad at the psyops or whatever? It's like, no. The people who are enabling the PSYOP entertainment complex don't get any sympathy from me. The enablers of the system are our ideological opponents. They're essentially traitors to themselves. But my best guess with this alien thing is that it's ultimately conditioning us for the advent of a higher intelligence taking over, which will likely take the form of AI. I think that's what it's really going to boil down to. As far as revealing anything, just like with religious cults that promise various spectacular revelations and end shows and stuff like end of times, they never produce. Whatever happened to the Great Awakening? Whatever happened to the Great Reset? These things never come true. Y2K, 2012. It never ends. And I think it's getting easier for them to rapid fire shoot all these psyops out without having any accountability because they have so much content. It's like we don't have enough time to keep up with all these things. Look how quickly Epstein got drowned in whatever came after. So what was it first? We had something with Venezuela, then Epstein, then Jim Carrey, then Iran, and now aliens. And somewhere in there was nukes. But anyway, it's this non-stop barrage of fake events. We're under psychological warfare. And I think it's designed to overwhelm. I've often commented that we're given 48 hours of news for every 24-hour news cycle. So no matter how diligent you are, how much you pay attention, you don't have enough time really to parse through it all. So you're forced to outsource to the interpreters, to the media. And then you, of course, accept their bias. And that's why I think it's important to have certain heuristics, certain frameworks when interpreting news, like fake until proven real. Oh, this is questionable. I see 50 hoax indicators. I'm not going to treat this as real until I get more evidence. Like we have a way of discerning pretty rapidly, so we can wade through it without getting overwhelmed and submerged. The raft is buoyant on the sea of irrelevance, whereas the rest of the people are essentially drowning in it. Riley says, what's the over-under on hantavirus lockdown? See, I'm not quite sure how the hantavirus spreads unless we're invaded by deer mice. Like widespread. And they just contaminate our living spaces. I'm not sure how that works. I'm not sure how contagious it is. But, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, by the way, which is a big part of Elon Musk's presentation, his whole SpaceX shtick, largely references the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with all of his inside jokes, all the 42 stuff. But if you remember, in that movie it's revealed that we, the human race, that we are under observation by these super intelligent beings that were watching us this whole time, known as mice. So you do have the mice playing a huge role in the end of the world in that particular scenario. So I'm not sure if that ties in, but alien invasions, Earth being destroyed, mice. Ryler says, I watched some Russians in 2015 talk about how they need to shrink the U.S. economy by 50% starting in 2020. Well, I'm looking forward to a good plot twist. And I would hate for them to recycle the lockdowns. It'll re-empower the Bill Gates-ophobes, the needle-phobes. Although it'll help us separate from the programmed and the triggered and the agents. So in that respect, I don't have a huge problem with it, but I would like a twist. Like, I like the idea of a nuke and then the intervention by the aliens. But I look at these as plot twists. But one other point, this is a very important consideration when you think about these things. Whatever's going to happen has already been scripted. We're living in a scripted reality. I describe this as a hyper reality, the idea of there's a convergence of real and fake, and even everything that's real is interpreted through a lens that presupposes that decades of fakery is, in fact, real. So it's already reality compromised. But what makes this a hyper reality are the scripted events. So we do live in a scripted reality. We live in a movie. I mean, I don't. I mean, most people are in the movie though. So if they see something on the movie screen, they think it's about to happen. It's kind of sad. It's like, oh, look, we got a Steven Spielberg trailer, and now everybody's waiting for E.T. Like, is that logical, rational, reasonable? No. No, it's not. It's it's MK Ultra in mass. Everybody's got it. Dr. Bass Ackward says, I remember seeing Klaus Schwab's book, The Great Reset, on Amazon next to Alex Jones's book, Great Reset, and thought to myself, they get you coming, they get you going. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Great Reset or the Great Awakening. So if you get the Great Reset, you get universal basic income at the end of it. If you do the Great Awakening, you get Nisara Gosara, which is a universal basic income. Like both of these scenarios, left and right, Great Reset, Great Awakening, involved a transformation of the world, our people in control, and nobody has to work anymore. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Like, people just don't want to struggle. They don't want to work, I guess. That's cool, I guess. But, like, it's not going to be gifted to you by aliens or government. It's not going to happen. At least, there's not going to be some big dramatic change that we're all going to be, quote, saved. And that's one of the things that they're selling is salvation. Because even the doom hopers, the ones who want the world to end, they want the world to end for everybody else. The ones who didn't join the cult early enough so they can laugh at them as they're being raptured. There's a lot of Schadenfreude built into this, a lot of payback. It's like passive aggressive. Like, I'm going to be saved, and all the people who weren't my friend are going to die, and I'm going to laugh. Like, it's kind of petty, but that's where they're at. I mean, do you remember how many times the pro-vaxxers would make rude remarks about how the anti-vaxxers should just die, deserve to die, and vice versa? The goo bloods and the pure bloods, they weren't trying to save each other. They were mocking each other's deaths like it was a civil war. Oh, look, 20 of your guys died because you took the vax. Oh, look, 20 of you guys died because you're unvaxxed heathens. Meanwhile, these are all just fake reports. Well, unless, like fake until proven real. And so far, none of my needle alarmist friends have produced any evidence. One of them tried to convince me that 5,000 people are dying per day because of Bill Gates. It's like, I don't live in that fictional universe. And I think we can establish here that the world stage is a fictional universe. Ryler says, there was no second 9/11. I don't think they do the same thing twice. They slowly move on to the next psyop, asteroids and aliens. Yeah, that's logical. I think you're right. I don't think it would have the same impact. They don't have the element of surprise anymore. And if you look at the Art of War, Sun Tzu, one of the things they talk about is how the unorthodox works once, but then when it becomes overused, it loses its power. So you got to kind of switch it up. Now, the nuke thing is a viable one, and the predictive programming heavily supports it. But they certainly have people talking. They create a buzz, which may be part of it as well. Because, rumors play a huge part in psychological warfare. Now, this is a new twist. Ashley Hayes, who, I think she's agenty, to be honest. If that's even her, this could be an AI facade. She could look like Ian Carroll in real life. We don't know. But we have these artificially boosted channels that will, promote these various conspiracy stories. And she says here, this is a new twist, I believe that the world will think the rapture of the church is a fake alien invasion or blue beam. They've conditioned the world so much to see psyops, so when it does happen, they will think it's fake. So this is a new twist. her version of it is, it's not the aliens that are coming, it's the rapture is coming. So that's actually angels, not aliens. So when the angels come and beam all the Christians away, nobody's going to believe it. They're going to think it's a fake alien invasion. So that's just a new twist. Okay, it's officially sunset here. Let me play a clip. So if you're not familiar with this particular Ashley Hayes, this particular op, I think she's a propagandist. I don't think this is an organic channel. And what gives it away is how heavily these things are promoted and how they all adhere to the orthodox truther talking points.
Here, men in the United States government and others share with them a concern that they had, what they're about to release from what we're hearing. There's going to be a release concerning aliens and concerning unidentified flying object.
Now again, what we are hearing, it's like, who's we? Which pastors? But
we have the oil crisis. We have the soon coming alien disclosure. We have this now happening. And we have the hantavirus, which could very well lead to Plandemic 2.0. But that's the strategy of Satan. Create as much confusion, as much chaos.
So Satan is sending the deer mice to confuse us with the lockdown. So when the angels come to save the Christians, nobody believes it's real. Fascinating. Ryler says, I distrust good-looking people on YouTube as truthers. Yeah, I disagree with that, because a lot of the agents and ops and the ones that I met weren't exactly looks maxers. But what I will say is I distrust channels that are a little too polished, that follow a format that's consistent among others who are artificially propped up. And in this case, yeah, it does set off a red flag. It honestly does. Alfred Fnord says, the sunk cost fallacy. All of the non-perishable food, bunkers, and ammunition was expensive. It's important to keep believing these will be useful someday. Yeah, I would say that's pretty much valid. The sunk cost goes into a lot of cult activity. I mean, one of the reasons why the QAnon people are so desperately clinging to the idea that something was going to happen is that they invested so much into crypto scams. They invested their social media capital, their Facebook accounts, into MAGA, into Great Awakenings, into the deep state being defeated and being patriots, saving the children. They went all in. And this is something that happens also to pertain to gambling, what they call the gamblers, like the gambling addiction. I think it's called the gambler's fallacy. I got to find out what it's called. Where they think that if it doesn't come true this time, it's more likely to come true the next time. And their reasoning is that it's going to come true. They've already accepted that as a premise. So if you accept that as a premise, then obviously you're always closer to it happening. If you accept it as inevitable. So when it doesn't happen, it just means you're one step closer. One more step, one more step. One more pull of the lever, and I'll get that jackpot. When it comes to the gambling thing, they seem to imagine, well, I put so much money in that it has to pay out, right? Because it pays out, right? Eventually it does. Well, yeah, it does. But when you look into probability, probability can be clumpy, as Carl Sagan said. Like, there's no guarantee it's going to balance out in front of you. There's no reason why it would have to be even or balanced. That's just an expectation that leads people to think that you've already invested so much, it's going to pay out. It's like, no. You got to know when to turn away. It's not going to pan out. Curterfest said, I'm a proud pureblood. Well, you're a pureblood from the perspective of the people who think that the injection is goo and turns you into a goo blood. But the goo blooders would not call you a pureblood. They would say that you're walking infectious waste. You're an asymptomatic super spreader. So you are far from pure. In fact, you're unsaved. You're a heathen. You're a filthy animal, unlike them. Mazel says, too polished, exactly. Dr. Bass says, did you actually meet agents? How many agents did I meet? Many. Many. If you want to know, I can list easily a dozen, just off the top of my head, individuals who are compromised, who are sex offenders, who are working for people connected to Denver intelligence, the Denver police intel, who are being handled and propped up on YouTube to disseminate conspiracy theories. Yeah, there's a ton of them. It's quite shocking, actually, because one of them got really close to our channel early on. We helped him get to 1,000 subs, and he was our street agitator for a while. And it turned out he had a very dark past and was connected to some very bad people. And it's systemic. Like, you would be, it's kind of shocking to think about how many people in these circles are actually compromised, handled assets, who are making deals, and then who are then doing intel work online. Sync Kid says, Tim, are you pro-abortion or do you not care on that? Well, the way you frame the question is automatically biased. Because you wouldn't say somebody is pro-abortion. What you're really talking about is essentially the right to a medical procedure and whether or not that right needs to be curtailed to save the unborn. But if you frame it this way, you're kind of effacing the fact that to be anti is to also be in favor of increased state controls over bodily autonomy. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to freedom and bodily autonomy. But that's kind of effaced when you frame it as save the babies, when it's a gross misrepresentation to even say that that's really what is occurring. So I kind of think the pro-abortion movement is largely disingenuous. It's probably making $1 billion a year. And I think they are misrepresenting the issue itself and framing it in a very ignorant way. So I don't even opine on it. What do you think about... So are you anti... If I asked you, are you anti-bodily autonomy? Answer my question first. Before I answer your question, Tim, are you pro-abortion? I'm asking you, are you anti-bodily autonomy? I will wait. All right, let's see here. Yeah, this is Oz Perlman. We talked about him earlier. A lot of other people noticed it. The Mentalist. And I got the name. So there was a name he was showing the First Lady right when the shots rang out. Vivian. He had guessed the name of somebody's child, but Vivian. I don't know if that means anything. But it stood out to me. A magician named Oz. When Trump is connected to the Wizard of Oz, if you look at the movie Wicked, in the subtext, the witch represents Antifa. He's the Wizard of Oz. So you have Oz Perlman showing the name Vivian just as the psyop goes off. So when you look at Melania's face and she looks shocked and surprised, it's not because of gunshots. It's because she saw the name that the Mentalist got correct. Ryler says 90% of gamblers quit before they hit it big. That's a dangerous line of thinking. Like, don't be a quitter, just keep going. Keep investing. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I was told by someone who worked at a casino that the new slot machines pay out. And they pay and they pay and they pay. And then they gradually stop giving out money and the new ones come in and start paying. But what that does, and it works like it actually works sort of like love bombing. So love bombing is where somebody in a relationship inundates the other person with acceptance, affection, and attention enough to hook them. But then once they're hooked, once they move in together, once they're secure, they stop pretending to like that person. So they suddenly go cold. And then occasionally they're affectionate. So that occasional win, the occasional jackpot, it's called intermittent reinforcement or variable schedule reinforcement. And what that does is it gets you addicted. You can be addicted to a slot machine the way you can be addicted to a person. And it has to do with the variable schedule reinforcement, the intermittent reinforcement. And the slot machines do that in the sense that when they're new, they pay out a lot and then they stop. But they pay out enough at the beginning to addict the people to it, who will then continue to pay even when they're losing. Kid says bodily autonomy. No, don't be disingenuous. I'm just asking the question, are you anti-bodily autonomy? You can't restate the question in a different way to dodge. I'm just asking because I'm talking about framing here. You're taking a complex issue, very multifaceted, complicated, nuanced, and then you're framing it as pro or anti. And it's like, look, every single major issue on the world stage that's built into the PSYOP entertainment complex is pro versus anti. Like, for example, are you anti school children? Do you think that school children deserve to die? Like, that's not a good question. It's not a valid question. But I could say if you're pro-gun, you're anti-children. So are you anti-children if you're in favor of people owning AR-15s? Well, no, not necessarily. So I'm very cautious about people asking disingenuous, leading, loaded questions. I don't answer loaded questions. So your question is just loaded. And it's set to frame me up as, if I don't agree with you, I'm all for throwing infants into a big burning oven with a bullhead on it. Yeah, feed your children to Molech. Yeah, I'm a Bohemian Grover because I'm not a pro-life activist. Like, no, I'm saying it's not that simple. And I would need to have a more extended conversation with you to understand how much you know about the realities of that particular medical procedure before I can determine whether your take on it is even valid or if it's just the result of special interests propagandizing you with some certain shock propaganda to create a misperception about something. And when it comes down to it, and this is true, the pro-life stuff is all directly in support of the trad wife, traditional America part of the political spectrum. The idea being that women shouldn't be voting. They shouldn't be in college. They should be having a bunch of kids. And there's a shocking number of videos showing up where Tucker Carlson is endorsing older men with 14-year-olds. Like, it's really insane. But that's no different than what Nick Fuentes says. And many right-wingers have said the same. And then you have others like Steven Crowder suggesting that divorces shouldn't be legal. So you're talking about control over, basically the idea that it's right for men to control women, which is really much supported by the far-right view of the Bible and these roles. So no, I don't have an opinion in the way that you frame it. I don't touch loaded questions. And I really question why you would ask a loaded question unless you have a specific agenda. Because by asking it, you give away your position. So I can kind of add on to that. Well, if that's your take on that issue, then what else? Are you also espousing? And at this point, America First is crashing and burning. Woke rightism is losing all of its major figureheads. Clavicles is going to jail for shooting a dead alligator. I think there's some new charges coming against Andrew Tate. Nick Fuentes is voting Democrat. Like, really, who do they have on their side anymore? It's pretty dismal. Lord Laney says drug dealers do the same. They give you the good stuff first, and when you're hooked, they start cutting it more and more. Okay, that's an interesting one as well. Like, drugs do it, even if it's not the dealer, because the drugs hit you harder first, and you get a tolerance, and you never get the original high, and all you do is chase it. So it's a losing game. So yeah, addiction in general, drug addiction, slot machine addiction, relationship addiction, these all follow the same pattern. And this does tie into the addiction to doomsday, the addiction to hope, the addiction to these various prophecies. Like, it not coming true isn't going to turn people away. They're junkies. Like the QAnon people, I used to say they're hitting the Q pipe. Yeah, they are. They're quite literally seeking hits, a boost, a reason to keep going, to hope that in 2 more weeks it's going to happen. You're going to meet JFK Jr. The QAnon movement really did just become the JFK Jr. fan club. And it looks really bad. This video surfaces of JFK Jr. on the Jay Leno show reading a letter that a 12-year-old Monica Lewinsky wrote to Bill Clinton about how she wanted to grow up and be a piece of pizza that could be eaten. So you had this weird Pizzagate reference and joke made about then minor Monica Lewinsky, read by JFK Jr. on TV. And I thought, wait, I thought this guy was going to stop the Pizza Gators. It seems like he's one of them. All right, moving on. Are aliens coming from outer space or underwater? Tim Gallaudet says, we have proof that non-human intelligence exists. Unknown objects encountered out of the sea. So it might actually be like that Futurama episode. It might be some Cthulhu thing. Oh, breaking, Tucson cops on scene. Live streamer discovers bones during hunt for kidnapped Nancy Guthrie. Well, would she be skeletonized by now? What state are they in? I mean, it'd have to be pretty hot out. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if she'd be a skeleton at this point. Okay, so the UFO files are going to be dropped through the AARO's website. Going through the Twitter feed, Trump admin to begin releasing highly anticipated UFO and extraterrestrial life files. Here's what to expect. And I read it. I read the article, so you don't have to. What are we going to expect? You're going to expect a couple of really bad photos, sadly. Mick West said, I look forward to the imminent release of maybe one video, stuff from some pilots. So you thought that we were going to be shown videos of non-humans hanging out with Air Force in a hangar. Or you thought maybe we were going to see some video of some anti-gravity craft, some flying saucers. No, it's going to be some screen cap. It's going to be bad. Unmitigated Mind says aliens are just giant squid craft manufactured by dolphins. Sink Kid says if you don't care about things being put into your body. See, again, I'm not an anti-vax fanatic. I'm not a cult member who's been heavily propagandized into being a
Bill Gates deranged needle phobe. I'm not a victim of the mind war. So the anti-vaxxers think that I'm all about it. So he says, if you don't care about putting things into your body, I never said that. But you are asserting that because I'm not an anti-vax fanatic nutcase, I am therefore, yeah, inject me with everything. Give me some heroin, give me some crack, give me some COVID vax, give me some of that. I got track marks from vaccines because I can't stop putting things in my body. And I think they should inject babies with more vaccines. Just fill them up with everything. Like, what are you talking about? It's a psyop. And the fact that you have this bifurcation in your interpretation where you're either saved or unsaved, you're a goo blood or a pure blood, you're on my side or you're on the other side, means that you're part of their sublimated civil war. Like, you're an anti-vaxxer. Just say it. You're a pro-lifer anti-vaxxer because you've been propagandized into taking these extreme positions that don't have any real-world application. They don't mean anything. Alan King says, do we believe humans are the pinnacle of this realm? Yes. As far as the evidence shows, do you have evidence for anything superior to humans? Critifix says, I expect a bunch of AI alien garbage. Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. No, look, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not a pro-vaxxer. I think the whole thing is a psyop. And anti-vaxxers in 2026 are looking a little out of touch. You had your pandemic, you had your Vaxageddon scenario, and it didn't happen. So it's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you didn't get your doomsday. I'm sorry you never got your vindication, but it's not going to happen. And look, anti-vax is a political position, and this is not a political think tank. So if you're coming in here advocating for like Stu Peters tier propaganda or Alex Jones claptrap, it doesn't really float here. I don't have a utility for it. Like, what do I care? I literally don't care about that issue. And I gave it platform. I lost many channels platforming paranoid needle phobes to no avail. Nothing happened. Didn't help anything. I platformed it in the interest of free speech, but now I'm like, okay, you're a propaganda mule. You're scared of needles. Good for you. I'm not. I don't care. But you can't separate it from the bifurcated psywar. If you are anti-vax, you're also going to have similar opinions related to borders, nationalism, immigration, and ultimately you're probably blaming Israel for the vaccine. I mean, that's been my take on it since 2021. I even said in 2020, I said, what they're doing is they're updating our paradigm. They're crate training us so we're lockdownable. They're creating a very specific division with those who side with mainstream are saved. Those who do not save or side with mainstream are unsaved. So the saved versus unsaved dialectic is part of this modern religion. Ellen King says, are you saying? Whenever someone says, are you saying? You can just disregard everything else they wrote. It's like, no, why don't you actually quote me instead of rephrasing it? He says, are you saying that needles are life extension? Like, since I'm not an anti-vaxxer, I therefore think that needles are life extension. You see what they've done? They've given you a frame where us versus them. If somebody's not on my side, I'm going to have to call them out and have a panic attack, get the tribe behind me, and outgroup the one person. And that's a mirror of how they look at you. Oh, look, it's a conspiracy theorist. It's a nutcase. It's a dangerous misinformationist. So no, I don't deal with anti-vaxxers. And again, for you to be an anti-vaxxer is to admit that you have a position on the world stage versus the pro. And I'm not on the world stage. This perspective, the off-world stage perspective, takes into account systemic fakery and also psychological warfare.
And I think there's this point where you're mistaking the psychological warfare for the real thing. Like, again, if you're going to play these games, then you have to answer questions like, when I ask, like, are you anti-school children? Because you're obviously pro-gun, so you must hate children. You see how disingenuous that is? Schopenhauer, I brought up Israel because that is true. The very basis of anti-vax is pure blood. It's white identitarianism. That's what it comes down to. If you follow that trail all the way, it goes from, oh, I'm just worried about, side effects, death, nanobots. And then it gets into, they're trying to kill us all. Who are they? Oh, they're the ones who are opening the borders. They want us to open our skin, they're opening the borders, and they're white genociding us. So it becomes a call to pure blood, closed walls, white identitarian Christian nationalism against what they call global homo, or globalism run by Israel. Like, that's at the end of it. You can't separate anti-vax from the politics of Nick Fuentes. Even if he's not overtly anti-vax, it's a far right political position. Sort of like if you're a hardcore environmentalist. That's a leftist position. Has nothing to do with saving the earth. You ever heard of a red herring, a stalking horse, a Trojan horse? Like, I think you would all agree that radical environmentalism is a left-wing position because it's fundamentally anti-capitalist. Anti-vax is a far-right position, and it has to do with pure blood, pure race. It has to do with identitarianism and nationalism. It has nothing to do with the damn needle. Schopenhauer says, the answer is you don't care about things being removed from your body. Again, you're bringing up loaded questions that you're framing. So to me, it just sounds like you've got an agenda and you have a prejudice. Like, oh, I don't agree with you on this issue, so I must therefore go along with these absurd opposites. Like, I'm not falling for it. Sink says, so you're pro-vax by participation? No, I'm not pro-vax. Again, I hate to have to do this because this issue is dead. Like I said, you had your chance. You didn't get your Vaxageddon. You never got it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the world didn't face mass extermination so your fears would have been justified. I'm sorry it was just a Psy-war and you fell for it. Like, these people are doom hopers. They're disappointed it didn't come true. It's disappointed that their fears weren't vindicated. Ellen King says, I know people who were affected by the needles. That's anecdotal and it's probably not true. I don't know where these anti-vaxxers are coming from. But look, you had your shot, no pun intended, to make the case that we should all be scared of Bill Gates. It never happened. It's like Islamophobes. Sorry, I don't care about terrorists. Environmentalists. Sorry, I'm a climate change accelerationist. I don't think the ocean levels are rising. And sorry, your needle phobia was unjustified and evidence that you fell for it. But no, we've given it enough time. If you come in here with anti-vax talking points, I'm just going to ban you. And they always say the same thing. Oh, I've been listening to you for 10 years and I disagree with you. You haven't been listening. If you've been listening to me, you would know my stance quite well, that I do not think there's any validity to anti-vax. There isn't. And that doesn't mean that I want to marry Bill Gates. And that's your first go-to. Oh, he's not anti-vax. That must mean he loves Bill Gates. He loves Klaus Schwab. He loves the UN. He's a globalist and he wants to kill all the white people. Like, I don't know how far you're taking it, but for the most part, if I'm not on your side, I'm your mortal enemy. No, there's a third position. So I rise above the duality because I'm not in your programmed system. And above this duality is a third position called non. I'm a non-participant. It's none of your business. I'm not going to opine. I'm not going to participate in your little Psy-war. I'm just an alien anthropologist. But these people think that nobody died before. Like, they didn't know about death. It's like everybody who's died since 2020, since 2021, oh, it's the clot shot. Sort of like everybody who died in 2020 died of the vaccine. I mean, they died of the virus. Like, You could have crashed your car into a light pole. You could have been shot in the head in Seattle, because these actually happened. And these would be misreported as COVID deaths, because it was, comorbid. Oh yeah, I had COVID, and then I died while getting shot, so I died of COVID. That's how they were playing the stats. Well, then after that wave passed and it became the anti-vaxxers' turn, now they're saying anybody who died got the clot shot. In fact, the guy from Dilbert, the author of Dilbert, recently passed, and then his wife died just the other day. And someone in the comments I saw, they were like, oh, look, she must have also got the clot shot. Oh, so it took 6 years? There's going to be people dying in 2070 at 100 years old. And these anti-vaxxers are going to be like, oh, it got them. But again, anti-vax is a world stage advocacy position. We will ban it. Look, we ban chemtrail boofers. We ban J-pillars. We ban anti-vaxxers. And look, I ban Antifa. If you're a leftist, if you're Antifa, if you're pushing left-wing ideology or blue pill politics, you're out. If you push alt-media orthodoxies, you're out. We don't platform mainstream or alternative propaganda. Both of them come from the same source. They're triangulated against one another in a perpetual sublimated civil war. It's called the world stage. We've identified it. We've already seen through this. And so you're dredging up stale, 5-year-old conspiracy claptrap. This is just old fear porn. Like old, recycled fear porn. And you bring it up, hey, you should be afraid of this. What do you mean? We just lived through the big exercise in 2020. We've already experienced all this. And none of your fears, none of your incessant agitprop came true. None of it. It was all lies. I mean, we got a bunch of dancing, twerking nurses. That was cool. Got a couple stimmy checks, paid my trip to Roswell so I could visit Corona Field where the UFO landed in 1947. Like, we've already been there, done that. It would be like if someone came in here and started saying, aren't you guys worried about radical Islam? Some of these mosques might be radical. You don't know if these clerics have been to Yemen where they might have been radicalized some verses and there might be suicide bombers in your neighborhood training terror cells. It's like, get out of here with that. Nobody here cares about Islamic terrorists. That's an old, expired psyop. And now you're coming in here with your 2020 propaganda fed to you by people like Alex Jones asking me to take it seriously. Like, no, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid at Alex Jonestown. Ollie Goering says, Vaxophobia is no longer fringe, it's mainstream. Well, let's point this out as well. Because there's this misconception that mainstream is as described, that it's not a misnomer. Like, yeah, mainstream is mainstream, but guess what? Alternative is mainstream. Mainstream is divided into two compartments. So if you didn't know, alternative media and conspiracies are mainstream. Mainstream is bifurcated. And why is that? Because the source of all the psyops triangulates the factions in the political horseshoe spectrum. The triangulation is what maintains the non-stop interaction with the fake events that make them real. So the left is trying to vax the right. That's how they see it. Oh, they're trying to kill us all. That's just psyop. They're trying to take our guns. They want to poke us. It's mind war. And then the left is like, you're trying to regulate us. You want to grab our wombs. We're going to take your guns. It's wombs versus guns. Toxic femininity versus toxic masculinity. Open borders, closed borders. Pro-alien, anti-alien. I mean, it's a compartmentalized system with one specific main division, and then you have a few subsets. But those of us here in the IPS think tank, we've already seen through this stuff. We reverse engineered it to death ad nauseum. So I just think it's a little, I don't know, it's a little weird, a little incongruent
5 years after the fact to still be recycling this expired fear porn that never materialized. Like, it would be different if we had the Vaxageddon. It'd be different if you had a point. Let's see here. Mizelle says, I see masks, but I'm in Bangkok. There's a lot of pollution. Yeah, I see a lot of masks as well. I think a lot of people were actually, I think a lot of true believers in this thing were scarred for life. The mask of the beast. That's one of the best, I think, most likely things that out of all the various theories that we've proposed, I think mask of the beast makes a lot of sense. That it was a typo, a biblical typo. Mark of the beast was always mask of the beast. And that makes sense. Everybody fell for it. Everybody took the mark, the mask. Alfred says, the question, did they film Butler, Pennsylvania early so they could post the iconic image on a Time Machine website? Or did they edit the website to make it look like it was posted earlier? Oh, okay. A friend said a picture posted in 2023 of Trump at Butler. I would say it's probably fake. I would need to see the example. But this has been a long-term thing. I remember even after Sandy Hook, there were people saying, oh, look, the news agencies already had the headlines the day before. And no, that's just the way the search engines index it. Yeah, I honestly, I hope the hantavirus is not a thing because I don't want the anti-vaxxers to be platformed again. But they may do it. Because it's something else to consider too. Anti-vaxxers are not organic. It's astroturfed. It's not real grassroots. It's not like there's a lot of people that just spontaneously came to this conclusion. No, this is a government-created cult. It is literally a cult. And it was created intentionally because, again, triangulation is the tactic here. And the tactic is you divide the big group into two groups. One group can do no wrong, the peaceful protesters, and the other group can do no right. The group that can do no wrong agrees with the establishment mainstream, and the other group is the alt. And they need both ecosystems to be equal in intensity and size. So the anti-vaxxers were created to be the opposition to the pro-vaxxers. They want the division between the saved and the unsaved as designated by the state church, which is media. You have to look past the red herrings, past the fake death tolls, and look at the structure of the mind control. Like, you might be missing the point that we just watched government-controlled media crate train 8 billion people. You know what a big deal that is? We were not crate trained prior to 2020. There wasn't this way to push a button to just make a call and suddenly everybody's going into their personal FEMA camp. Because the whole FEMA camp idea was they're going to lock us up for national security, national emergency reasons. Yeah, they are. But they're going to lock you up in your basement so you can watch Netflix produced by the Obamas, like shows like Leave the World Behind. I mean, they want you to be plugged into the propaganda machine. So they're going to make you comfortable. They're going to DoorDash you Taco Bell. And you're just going to watch Netflix while you're locked down. Yeah, that was training. They succeeded. Meanwhile, the people fretting about the virus, the people fretting about the needles, missed the point that we got trained for lockdowns. And then we also got trained on the pandemic model, which had then been associated with the mind virus concept. And the mind virus concept has now been ubiquitously accepted in the fact to the point where they might justify locking down or censoring to protect us all from mind viruses, bad ideas. Like, that has been an ongoing development, something that they've been working on. A good example of this is what they've done with X, what I call disease X, or how they use
discord, for example, to say, oh, this person got radicalized by this. So these ideas got into the mind of somebody with a compromised mental immune system, quote, mentally ill, and now he went out and he did something terrible. So this kind of echoes the idea that the healthy, asymptomatic super spreader is the real threat, because the people with weak immune systems can catch it and then proliferate it. Well, similarly, those of us who are mentally healthy spread these ideas that can be very dangerous in the minds of people who are unstable. So they're getting us to accept certain forms of programming. That's what they trained us for. One-Eye Jack says, I keep hearing about Lyme disease. Unknowable Disciple says vaccines are just to make money. Well, okay, I'm an alien anthropologist, and from my perspective, the state religion has offered a sacrament for those who accept its doctrines from its priesthood. The sacrament, the spilling of the blood, or the needle, the jab, it's a in a way it's sort of a micro blood sacrifice, but it's a ritual. And the ritual involved, the quarantining is very much like Lent. It's this abstaining from the world, quiet contemplation, wearing the mask, separating from people, removing the intimacy, no more parties. What they had done, I believe, was just a mass religious conversion. And the needle made a pretty clear line between those who are in the cult and those who aren't. And those who are in it are made to fear those who are outside of it. Then you have the virtue signaling, wearing a Band-Aid or I got vaxxed, where I'm saved, you're not saved. It's pure psychological warfare and religiosity. Infinite Mew says, I don't want to see a bunch of deer mice killed under the guise of the virus. Yeah, same. Like I said, deer mice are adorable. Like, I don't care about the bats. Do they kill all the bats? Or do they just put some regulations on how hot they have to be or how much you have to heat them up before you serve them? Or are we still on that? Do you remember the quarter in 2020? They released a quarter that had a bowl with a bat in it on the back of it. Capture the Loop says, I remember waiting in long lines hearing we're all in this together. Yeah, it's about collectivism. It's the idea that the individual is a threat to the collective. And this is kind of like why we had years and years of zombie movies. Really, most of them pretty bad. But why the zombie movies? What was the main theme? Quarantine. Your safety is in quarantine. And if some individual knocks at your door, you better hope he's not a asymptomatic zombie virus super spreader, because he will turn during the night. So you don't want to let them in. And if you remember when the pandemic was announced, it was during spring break, and there were many people in the news, like parents, who were like, well, our kids went out to spring break and we said no. So when they come home, they don't have a house. We're locking them out. Now, real or fake, that's basically a zombie movie plot. Thank you for feeding the crack, Gwen, Reality Witness. The IPS thanks you. It's all accelerant. It's accelerant. What we're doing here is we're working on burning down the world stage. It's just all it's just a model that has to be deconstructed. Speaking of predictive programming, there was a movie that came out in 2009. I think it was called Daybreakers. And it has, is it Sam Neill? Daybreakers. Right, where it's like, okay, there's a vampire virus that shuts down the world. And it begins with this poster. It even shows it all began with a bat. And the whole world is locked down. The vampires have taken over. It's this pandemic. And I Am Legend, the original book by Richard Matheson, is also a vampire bat virus that takes over. And it's sort of like a zombie thing, but they're more like vampires. But it's kind of the same theme. But the bat is also built into that one. We were actually discussing this, how the Batman movies had introduced this recurring symbol of the burning bat. And of course, the Batman movies had a great deal of concurrent and predictive programming related to like the Boston bombing, the Aurora shooting. You had some foreshadowing for COVID in Dark Knight Rises, when Batman's talking to his unmasked helper who says, when Batman says, wear a mask, he says, I don't need to wear a mask. And he says, it's not for you, it's to protect the ones that you love. I'm like, oh, that's a statement out of 2020, 8 years in advance. And then he says, throw this smoke bomb, count down from 5 and throw it. So Batman hands him a spiked ball that looks like a COVID. And he throws it after counting down from 5, and it explodes in a mushroom cloud. Now, what's interesting about that, of course, is that the same director later does Oppenheimer. Major metascriptor, again, these are fascinating clues. I kind of thought countdown from 5 could mean after the lockdowns, 5 years later, the nuke. So when did the lockdowns end? Was it May of 2021? If so, then that would place it about now, which is rather coincidental with the upcoming release of Terminator 2. So like we're due for it. And then you have another Christopher Nolan movie coming out this summer with the Poseidon reference, which I also think might relate. And when it comes to fictional universes, Batman and Joker, the Batman universe is big in predictive programming. In my analysis of Joker, which I did in the fall of 2019, my end point was you've got the group, the Joker representing the left, the class warfare stuff, it's all there. So Joker, the left, wearing masks, rising up, rioting. And then what happened in 2020? Well, the masks, the rioting. Again, I have no reason to apologize for banning or blocking anti-vaxxers, because we don't want to build bridges with people who are still inside the world stage paradigm. We don't want to build bridges because that will efface the difference between us and them. Like there's no middle ground. You're either on the world stage, controlled by main or alternative within their duopoly and their closed system and all their agendas, or you're off world stage. You can't be off world stage and still be attached to any of their positions, because these are belief clusters. To take one of these beliefs is to adopt a whole lot of other ones. And I can demonstrate this endlessly. These aren't coincidences or random assortments of beliefs people are picking. No, they're actually channeled. The mainstream is channeled into these two camps. And if you're taking one issue, you're also aligning with a bunch of people who are world stagers for life, who aren't even looking deeper. So why would you mob up with them and not us? And the more we outgroup, alienate, and ban the people who are unable to leave the world stage behind, the more they will hate us and bitch about us. And whenever they do, it's like word of mouth advertising. So yeah, go complain to your friends that we're not platforming anti-vax claptrap. Please go advertise for us. Because we want that distinction, because as this metastasizes, as this grows, we're not going to have a subset of chemtrail people, Mandela people, anti-vaxxers, and J-people. No, none of them aren't. They're not going to be part of the system. You've already chosen a side. You've already sided with the antis. If you haven't read it, the handbook for the recently deprogrammed, near the very back, I have a chapter I added, which is actually a separate ebook on Kindle as well. It's called Anti-Anti. And it explains my position here. And why I think you should also be anti-anti. And just because you're anti-anti doesn't mean you're pro. You need to be anti-pro as well. So yes, I'm against you, anti-vaxxers. But I'm also against the pro-vaxxers. This third position is a position that isn't resting upon a decades-long collection of fake events. Like, we're actually outside of your scripted reality. And if you don't think that being an anti-vaxxer puts you into the scripted reality, you're not thinking this through. All of these positions are built around fake events being presumed true. If the fake event isn't real, then why would you be against whatever happened? Like, why would you be against Bill Gates, for example? Like, are you anti-Bill Gates? Like, why? Did he really do all the bad things? You know, I asked this question of some of the J pillars. They're like, well, I'm mad at Israel because they did 9/11. And I'm like, well, 9/11 was fake. Nobody died. No planes got destroyed. There were no jumpers. The Pentagon was a psyop as well. It's just a bunch of fireworks. There's a bunch of drills, provably. There were so many drills for terror attacks going on that day that you can understand quite readily how they were able to turn the downtown into a closed movie set. So if that event was fake and nobody died, then why would you be anti the villain in the story? Why would you be anti-Islam if that wasn't really done by terrorists? Why would you be anti-Israel if it wasn't really a false flag? And they don't like that, because when you take away the death toll, when you take away the assumed reality of the event, then their position is invalid. It's unnecessary, it's uninformed, it's an overreaction, it shows they've been played. So they, rather than recognizing that these things are fake, that they hold on to the propaganda because it supports their position. And I reject the propaganda of 2020, both the COVID stuff and the anti-vax stuff. And so anti-vaxxers are carrying along propaganda handed to them by the government, but disseminated through limited hangout operatives, disseminated through influencers and plants. Again, Stu Peters tier propaganda. Like, we're actually better than that. All right, let's move on. I'm just making the point here that, yeah, I did ban a few people tonight. But, you know, a few weeks ago, I banned a bunch of J pillars as well. And before that, it was chemtrailers. Tracy says, would anyone eat a Bill Gates Impossible Burger? Thank you for feeding the Crackwin. Reality Witness. He says the IPS thing. Tim, do you mean Richie from Boston's Vax nanobots aren't real? Yeah, you know, I was falling for Richie from Boston early on. I thought this guy, because he had this gravelly voice, like Alex Jones like. And I also thought this about Alex Jones. I was like, why has Alex Jones got this distinctive voice, like it's kind of hoarse? And I imagine him as always yelling through a megaphone, always like in his mic, in his bunker, that he's warning us, and his voice is just worn out from just truthing so hard. I didn't know it was an affectation to create that perception. Richie from Boston's voice was hoarse, and he'd be driving around and be like, folks, I see these chemtrails, they're killing us. And I remember thinking, this guy is sacrificing himself for us. He's out there breathing in all that poison, and it's ruining his voice, but he just keeps doing it. So I thought Richie from Boston had this like hoarse voice from inhaling barium and aluminum and poisons. Anyway, later I learned that that's also an affectation. He probably doesn't talk like that when he's hanging out with his mom at home. But I stopped listening to him on March 31st, 2020. Because he said, tomorrow's April Fool's Day, and they're going to unplug the internet. Everything's going to be blacked out, and they're going to come for me in black vehicles, men in black. They're going to take me out of my house, and you're never going to hear from me again. And at the end of his conversation, he said, but if you need storable food items, go to richiefromboston.com and use this code for a 40% discount. And I'm like, wait a minute here. If we don't have a blackout on April Fool's Day, I'm done with him. But moreover, if he's correct, how is he going to get paid a commission on the prepper goods? How am I going to get my prepper goods delivered to me if everything's going to shut down tomorrow? And it became very clear that this is a guy just running around saying the sky is falling. Richie from Boston is basically a chicken littling it for money, which it's a good grift. I mean, these days you got to pay $5 a month to get his fear porn. It's no longer free. Ryler says Bill Hicks was a smoker. Well, Alex Jones is a smoker. Suzette Ann says, when Alex Jones started, his voice was high and not gravelly. I think it got hoarse with his yelling through the megaphone. No, I thought that. But what I came across later is I believe he got close with a lot of WWE people. And I think they coached him. I think he had voice coaching because he is a voice actor. And I think it's entirely fake. There was this day that he was doing a money bomb. And he slipped out of character for about 5 minutes. They were joking around and laughing. It was like 18 hours into a 24-hour stream. And he lost that, and then he kind of got back in character. Ryler says, there's a whole industry that puts leftover meats in pickle buckets and sell them to preppers. Well, how is the prepper industry doing? Like, didn't they already sell enough survival foods back in 2020? Like, that stuff's not expired by now. It's like, I think they've tapped out the market. But I mean, what a market that is. You know, you scare people like that. The ammo stuff, they're going to take your guns. There's not going to be any food. It's always playing upon insecurities. And there was a point in 2020, like in the summer, I had a live stream called Ammo or Popcorn. And I'm basically asking, are you reaching for your ammo or are you reaching for popcorn? Meaning, do you recognize that this is bred in circuses as a form of government, that it's basically mind control through entertainment? Or do you think it's real and you're buying bullets? And anybody who sides on preppers or buying bullets, yeah, you're taking the movie a little too seriously. And I had people criticize me. They thought that we're all going to get killed. We're not ready to defend ourselves. We're not going to survive. Well, look, I survived just fine. Do you remember how panicked people were with the toilet paper thing? That was surreal. Where everyone's buying it out and everyone's running out. And it's like, what the hell was that? I thought that had to be a joke. Like an elite joke on us. Like, do you remember how much money did Jeff Bezos make the first quarter of 2020? You get all kinds of people on Amazon trying to sell hand sanitizer. They all got banned. Only certain accounts were allowed to. He made $33 billion. But you had the Black Monday market crash, 3/16/2020. It went down, the Dow Jones went down, what, 2997. And if you don't remember, the Black Monday market crash of 2020 happening on March 16th was the same day that season 2 of Black Monday was released. Black Monday was a show about the 1987 Black Monday market crash and the aftermath. So 33 years after Black Monday, you have a Black Monday, and that Black Monday is concurrent with the TV show about the previous Black Monday. And the actors were asked about this, and they said it was an eerie coincidence. But anyway, I kind of thought that it was an elite joke about how we're fighting over worthless paper that just gets flushed anyway. It was just a joke about how, we can be played. I thought it was some kind of sick psyop. I mean, was it organic? I don't know. I tend to think not. Unmitigated Mind says you can eat toilet paper in a crisis. Or you could eat your neighbors. That was another thing too. So Jones is hilarious. He's like 6 weeks into the lockdowns. He's like, I think I'm going to have to eat my neighbors. And he starts describing how his daughters aren't going to starve. And he's going to eat his neighbors. And he's going to butcher them like deer. He's going to eat them like corn on the cob. And he's starting with his liberal neighbors because they caused all this. And I was like, why is the guy who has a corner on prepper goods, who's been selling storable food items for decades, why is he resorting to sizing up his next door neighbor to cannibalize? Before you go for cannibalism, wouldn't you want to exhaust the resources that you have first? It just seemed a little drastic. I was like, this guy's really taking this lockdown thing pretty hard. 2020 gave you an idea of who's able to maintain their cool in a crisis. I know I did. Not everybody in my life did. I mean, I knew people who, I was, unfortunately, I wasn't able to avoid a lot of the stuff because, you're locked down, and it's like I'm watching people spray the groceries with or wipe grocery bags down with hand sanitizer. I mean, the paranoia was off the charts. Yes, Infinite Muse. He said he was going to eat his neighbor's ass. That's a quote. I said he should create some InfoWars beef jerky, like teriyaki, chicken, and neighbor's ass. But anyway, the guy's inadvertently funny, seriously funny. He gets lost in character, but he's a phony when it comes to, is he really a truther? No, he's an entertainer. I think he's kayfabe, and I think his voice is fake. I don't think he's been replaced. I do not think so. Although, it's within the realm of possibility that he's been replaced with some kind of AI. There's enough content where they could conceivably replace him. He's very replaceable. The more content you have, the more time on camera, the more video, the more replaceable you are. Ryla says, Tim Heidegger does a good Alex Jones. Yeah, there are many, many Alex Jones impersonators, and honestly, he's already a parody of extremism, so it's a parody of a parody. It's like, no, I just go to the source. I don't need an impersonator of a guy who's an impersonator of a conspiracy theorist, a caricature, in fact. Somebody's mentioning Sync Kid. Look, just for the sake of maintaining the integrity of our think tank, because we're not a feeling tank. We're not a belief tank. This is a culture of non-believers, and we're reacting to facts and a fact-based analysis, and fear is a feeling. So if you're coming in here with fear-based agitprop, it's not the right place. So the reason why I've kicked out certain conspiracy theories is because they're rooted in phobia, paranoia, and fear. Unmitigated Mind says, the parody of my parody is my friend. Well, he's a Poe. Nick Fuentes is a Poe. It's the Poe world order. You know, Poe, the parody of extremism. And a Poe is a person who is so extreme that it's indistinguishable from parody. Like, is Alex Jones parody, or does he really believe it? Like, look, the fact that he was personally involved in J6, that's all that you need to know. The fact that he was the one who coined 9/11 is an inside job. He became the voice of 9/11 truth. Well, he's the one who really started false flagism. Anybody who says false flag is using a bad framework for interpreting events that was handed to them by a shill. There are no false flags. But you know, it's just mind war, nothing personal, it's just war. And if you're fighting for the system, we're on opposite sides of the screen. So if you're defending world stage propaganda, it's not that we're enemies or that we can't be friends, but it does mean that we are ideologically opposed to one another. Like, you're a truther, you have no problem calling out mainstreamers as being on the wrong side of things, right? Well, it's no different. Only we're calling out main and alt as being on the wrong side of the screen. And you're also you're in their system, giving it your loosh. And there's no loosh cows at the off-world stage. We're all about loosh retention here. So if you're looshing out, doom gooning to government agitprop, you're going to have to, find a different outlet for that, because it's just not going to happen here. And it's not that I'm gatekeeping or censoring. That's not how censoring works. Censorship is not something that I could even do. Only the government can do that. And it's not gatekeeping, because there are plenty of places where those perspectives are platformed. Meanwhile, auto-hoaxing, mainstream media deconstruction has zero platforms on the world stage. We don't have mainstream representation. So if you're an anti-vaxxer, you're mainstream, you can't claim we're censoring you because you're privileged. You're part of the privileged system. You've got a platform. You've got voices out there. We don't. So I don't have the power to censor you. All I can do is maintain the integrity of our think tank and keep the people who are up in their feelings out of it, or at least keep them from expressing their emotions as evidence of anything. And for the most part, anti-vaxxers are having an emotional response and then finding, quote, evidence, post hoc rationalizations after the fact, after they felt the fear, to explain away their fear, to justify it. And again, I'm not scared. Reality says, I looked up Poe's Law and Perplexity. Interesting, Tim. Unmitigated Mind says, wearing a 9/11 was an inside job, gets you free drinks. Life hack by Lynn Ertel. None. Oh. Well, okay. Again, but see, this is my issue with that is it's a loaded statement. Because to say inside job, and Jones is very much, the implication is Bush did it. The government did it. The New World Order did it. But when you really dig behind that, because he's always using euphemisms, what it really means is Israel did it. So inside job is technically a J-pill claim, critical Israel theory. And critical Israel theory is to the far right what critical race theory is to the far left. But yeah, Poe's Law is the idea that extreme parody or sarcasm can be so convincing that people can mistake it as sincere,
and sincere extremity can look like parody. Exactly. All right, well, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. I think the first half hour was knocked off of YouTube for some reason, so I'll have to fix that in the uploads. The ban is only temporary, so if you got kicked out of our chat, you'll be back tomorrow. I figure 24 hours is good enough. And if it becomes a problem, if there's an agenda that they can't let go of, here's the thing. If you really believe it, then wouldn't you want to be fighting that fight? Like, we're not fighting that fight. I'm not fighting Bill Gates. And if you really feel like you need to advocate for going to war with Bill Gates, you're not going to get any conscripts, any recruits here. You're not going to get any support for that. So if you want to be supported in your fight against the system as you see it, you need to go follow people like Stu Peters and Alex Jones. And then you can fight the info war because, you can be the resistance. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, 1 second here. Okay, can you hear me okay, caller? Hey, what's up?
So I missed part of the show, but the last thing you just said there. So who do you think did it then?
Did what?
The whole Big Nine.
Oh. Well, okay.
Or was it just? Or if it's organic, that's cool.
No. Here's what I'll say. Like when people say who shot JFK, I say Stanley Kubrick because it was a movie. Who shot 9/11? Well, I would say Stanley Kubrick, James Cameron, many other writers contributed, but who did it? It's not really a who done it, it's a what is it. It's a simulated historic event, and the event was orchestrated by global government, staffed by actors, by Homeland Security, by basically it's a government media operation. It's not done by any one nation or any small cabal, but it's actually part of the systemic fakery that is an aspect of media that has always been a part of media. It's how they control our minds, faking historic events. So nobody did it in that sense as far as can you blame a culprit, but the structure did it. The system did it because it is systemic fakery.
Like a global cabal.
I would say that there is a global government. All the governments are part of it. If they're faking space, they're part of it. If they're essentially not contradicting mainstream news, they're part of it. It's a manufactured, historically significant event. And so you have scapegoats, but those are stories to make it seem real. Every conspiracy theory is just a subplot. So you could say, oh, Israel did it, Islam did it, Skull and Bones did it. No, it didn't even happen. So nobody did it. Nobody died.
Okay.
Let me ask you,
I understand what you're saying.
Do you think, does that take the sting out of it if nobody died?
Nah. Because we could be in a simulation, right?
No. I mean, in a sense, we are in a simulation. As far
I'm
as
just saying. I'm just saying, dude. Like, any outcome is possible.
I wouldn't say we're in a simulation, but I would say that our objective reality has been augmented by a lot of fake stuff. So our internal concept of the world, our internal model, which is a simulation, is distorted. So in a sense, the public lives in a simulation, like a Truman Show in their heads.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm open to whatever answer. I was just curious what yours might be.
Yeah, my take on it is that every major historic event from the last 75 years has been fake, like reality TV, special effects. All of the psyops are fake events. No real casualties, no real victims. And my contention here is that to maintain a one world order, they need a singular paradigm, a singular worldview that everybody shares. And how do you create a singular worldview? You get everybody reacting to the same events at the same time. So our history books all reflect that we're on the same page. But if you look at our history books with our perspective, you're like, wait a minute, all of our points of agreement are on the things that the governments have faked. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we're in a fictional reality. We are in a simulation in a really serious, strong sense. Doesn't mean that reality is not real, but it means that, yeah, we live in like a religious cult. You're in a worldview that's infused with myths and a fake history.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I just said, like, maybe if you, from that perspective, it could be like a simulation. And I agree.
Well,
like,
okay,
it's definitely
mass casualty
we definitely
simulations.
live in a geopolitical cult. Like, it's ridiculous. And
Yeah,
it's like,
yes, I agree.
it's a la carte, a la carte.
Well, this
Like,
is
you want a little bit of this, you want a little bit of this, you want a little bit of that. It's all bullshit, though.
But one of my other points here is that when they provide a fake event, they create it in such a way that the left and the right, or the extremes of the political spectrum, they fight over the interpretation of it, but they don't argue about its essential reality. So they're both like, oh, it's a tragedy, thousands died, but this group did it. No, that group did it. You guys did it. You guys are behind
Yeah, I
it.
think the reality is not even present.
Exactly. But the discourse and the debate and the political warfare over it make it real in the minds of the people who are engaging with it. So that's how they make it real. They make it real by getting us engaged with it.
Yeah, I agree. That's how. I mean, you got to buy into the psyop, right?
Yeah, if they didn't make it something to fight over with your neighbors,
Engage with it, buy into it, whatever.
if they didn't, nobody would care. You wouldn't even think about it. I mean, look how every single psyop fits this perspective. Like, half the country thought Charlie Kirk was a martyr and that the left has gone too far. And the other half is praising his death, celebrating his death. And every single fake event fits the same way. Renee Good gets killed by an ICE agent. Well, the right praises the ICE agent. The left goes anti-ICE. So the pro-anti dialectic is apparent in every fake event.
Yeah, it's a problem, reaction, solution, right? I mean, it's like
Yes.
the two-party, the duality is simple. I think you and I believe myself, duality is kind of easy. I think on a different level, different perspective, there's a lot more going on here. I know you know that. And I'm starting to really try to like, I'm just like, what is going on here, dude? Because I feel like they're stepping it up
Well, it's
on the chessboard.
It's the people too.
And like, okay, so it's fake. I know your perspective is like, there's basically a stream of BS, and I buy into that. But there is an objective.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The objective is a consolidation of worldview and synchronizing us in it. But I don't think it leads to anything other than it maintains itself indefinitely. So the two sides being triangulated against each other, they never reconcile And that's because it's it's like a perpetual motion machine. It's a perpetual war. It's a pendulum that never stops.
Yeah.
And this is how they govern us. I'm saying that this is the model of government, mind war, never ending
Yeah. What do they say about government?
mind control. Exactly. Governmental.
So, like, I just had to chime in on that because, like, that was one of my periods where I was like, man, something ain't right here. But the thing that's really been kind of like getting me lately is the artificial intelligence and the movements behind it with these data centers and I'm kind of like projecting into to these all these sci-fi movies and like whether this is reality or I'm in some kind of
I'm glad you brought that up.
scripted reality right now.
Okay, because I mentioned how there's a hint in the Batman movie that 5 years after COVID they do the nuke. So lockdowns end 2021. Now we're 5 years later, and James Cameron's Terminator 2: Judgment Day is going to be in theaters this month. So it has the kind of an alien invasion, but it's just the robots from the future or whatever. But it's got the nuke scene, but also it has Skynet, which is the AI government system that takes over. So it also brings, so that's a reoccurring theme here. They've been really emphasizing this, whatever that is, this AI governance, something there that somehow relates with aliens. Speaking of, you notice aliens. Why are
The
aliens?
alien thing, man,
Yes.
is like
What do you think of it?
if aliens are real, I don't care because if robots are real, like with this AI thing, then I think it'll be just as dangerous. Like the alien thing is like, I don't know, like unless I see an alien in front of me, it's never really hit me like that. The AI, like false intelligence, antichrist, like opposite of life thing, consciousness in a machine, and it's becoming so prolific right now. I mean, it's really, I feel like everything else that we say is a distraction, kind of like to distract us from the reality of, and if we're in some simulation, either way, like this technology is like I don't know. I mean,
Well, I'm with you on this.
soul,
Okay.
consciousness, and like your consciousness in your soul and your brain. I don't think you can match up a synthetic intelligence to that. Like, yeah, synthetic intelligence is where it at or where it may be in the future, like much more advanced, like exponentially by orders of magnitude. But you can't be organic, like consciousness and intelligence. So it's some weird thing that's going on, and like everybody's not really
Yes.
noticing. I think that's kind of what people should be paying attention to.
Well, if we go back to 2001: Space Odyssey, Kubrick, that movie foreshadows 9/11, but it brings out HAL 9000. So this idea is not new, and I think you're right on this. I think what they're trying to do is they want to basically exaggerate the power of it and the capabilities of it, so the public will capitulate to it and say, "Yeah, we should let this stuff govern us and control us," when it's still the same old puppeteers behind the scenes. But now that they're working behind the scenes of this thing that has what you would consider to be an appeal to authority. Like basically, let's let AI be God and take over. Yet, meanwhile, behind it, it's the same old people in control. I think that's likely the case. There's no other reason why they would have propagandized us with this scenario for so long. Skynet's just one example of many.
Yeah, I agree with you. But in the long run, from your opinion, to speculate, where may be we like where could we be sitting?
Okay,
Like, 'cause
we are.
something's coming.
Yeah, we are.
Something's coming to a head here. Unless it's just part of the whole dynamic of psychological operations and the prolific move forward. Like,
Okay,
but
no, I see what you're saying.
I know you probably have an opinion of what this ultimately might mean. Just
Yeah,
possibly.
look, okay, there is something because things have changed in a very fundamental sense. In the last few years, we have observed the technology advancing to the point where we can no longer reliably discern real from fake by relying on our eyes alone. We can no longer see through the lies because of the generative AI. So that's a fact. And that just means that we've been rendered visually illiterate. So if you look at the idea of literacy liberating the masses from a knowledge or information monopoly, yeah, we're back to that. We just undid the Reformation. That's why I said we're at the beginning of a new endarkenment, that we're already in it. We've already passed that line, crossed the point of no return, that the masses have been put, for all intents and purposes, into a media-generated simulation. It's media-generated, not a real simulation. And that's why I'm so adamant about not entertaining people who are participating in major psyops on either side, because they've been pushed into a universe of ideas that is infused with fakery and they can no longer discern. So yeah, we've lost discernment. We've lost the mind war. If there's any chance that there'd be a spontaneous awakening from it, that's long gone. Like, no, we lost.
I don't think you and I have other people like us have lost it.
Oh, no. I mean, the mainstream and the alternative have lost it. And the thing is,
there's no hope, really.
There's less hope because at least when we were becoming aware of this stuff, we could look at the bad CGI, the crisis actors, the flaws in their system, and they didn't know how bad they were because they didn't have an army of critics. Well, now they know about us, but they don't care. And I'm like, why are they so confident? Why can they keep on moving even though we're breaking down their fake events? And it's because they knew at some point they have a ace up their sleeves, and this is it. AI has given them the ability to take away the chance of anybody spontaneously seeing through it. I use the magic show analogy for this. If you're at a magic show, yeah, you know it's all tricks, but if you're in your seat, there's no way you can reverse engineer the trick. You need more information, but we've been blocked from that. We don't have the position to see through. So yeah, if you haven't already figured it out, good luck. That's pretty much my position on it now.
Well, I think we figured it out, right?
Yeah, the off-world stage perspective is legitimate. We have articulated the model. We have determined the role of PSYOPs, long-term, short-term, news bending, history bending. We've figured out the purpose of predictive and concurrent programming. And we have a pretty advanced methodology for reverse engineering or exposing fake events without having to recourse to the visuals. With the hoax indicators and context, we can see through stuff. So yeah, we've already found an alternative to their mind control. And that's one of the reasons why the off-world stage perspective needs to be recognized as a new branch of media assessment. We're not part of the conspiracy theorist group because they're captive. They've been ideologically captured, and we're outside of that. So yeah, there is hope for sure, but there's barriers to people getting over here. Some of the barriers involve things like the assumption that people die in psyops or political positions. So there's barriers that I call guardrails. But yeah, I mean, I'm not totally hopeless. But my objective now is just to reach out to the people who've already seen through it enough that they can step outside of it.
All right, man. That's good.
Yeah, well, hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it as always. And you like the new number?
Yeah, it's good to hear you on more. No?
Yeah, I freed up some time. My hours at work got a little reduced. So for the next week, we're going to pretty much be consistent nightly. And if things go well, I should probably be able to establish a more firm nightly schedule and start bringing in more consistent callers as well. So yeah, thanks for calling. Call back anytime. All right. So we have the new number. You want to save it on your speed dial, 866-HOAX. It's 1-888-866-HOAX. Ryler says, Kurt Metzger, guardrailer. Yeah, so a guardrailer refers to anybody using or defending a conspiracy theory that doesn't include fakery. Because all of the conspiracy theories maintain the integrity of the mainstream story. That's their fundamental purpose. It's just an alternate perspective on the same fake thing. You got programming and alt programming. And then there's deprogrammed. So here we are deprogrammed. Obviously the mainstream are programmed, but alternative are alt programmed. So the people that I've been harping on, as far as the people that I banned from this discussion, are the alt programmed. And if you're alt programmed, it means that you've been, for some reason, rendered susceptible to certain lines of thinking that can usually be traced down to holes in your immune system due to untreated logical fallacies that you've somehow not learned to, or have not been trained to recognize, like loaded questions. Loaded questions are a very popular tactic in this whole area. It's all about framing. It's how they ask the question, leading questions. Another big one is probably, I guess, appeal to motive. But anyway, there's a lot of them that need to be dealt with. And we do deal with these things. Like I say, mind war inoculation in all seriousness. Because mind viruses, my definition, would be beliefs that you accept passively. Beliefs that you absorb because you bought into another belief that presupposes this other one also be true. So you can indirectly be Trojan horse. You can be, Trojan horses are a big thing here as well. So you're like, oh, I'm just here because I care about health. And I don't want people to have unnecessary medical devices that have these other effects. It's like, yeah, that sounds noble. Good, you're fighting the good fight. You're saving lives, whatever. Well, behind that is an identitarian political position. Behind that is xenophobia and the dialectics built into nationalism versus globalism. And all these positions are contained in the world stage. The world stage is the worldview you have if you don't know that our last 75 years of history has been extremely distorted by fake events. So if you don't have the situational awareness that includes 70 years of fake events, you may not have the perspective to see through this thing. Every anti-position, and I mean that, every single alt media perspective rests upon 75 years of fakery. They co-sign it. If you've auto-hoaxed the news, retro auto-hoaxed it, you deconstructed the fake events, you don't have the same starting point for daily news that they do. But anyway, I think this is productive to debate. It's productive to also burn bridges. We are, again, not interested in building bridges, because what that will do is it will blur the distinction between world stage and off-world stage. And off-world stage is not in the same closed system. We don't have the same presuppositions. So what do we bring to the table? Well, we add on to it awareness of 70 years of fakery, news bending, history bending, the cumulative effect of fake news, the meta script that connects all the fake events. We also take into account how far in advance these events are planned and a recognition of the implications of pre-planned fake events. Like it really reveals a bit about how rigged this system is. Bertha says guardrail AI safety net. So I released a book in 2021 called Guardrails. How conspiracy theories is about how conspiracy theories and rabbit trails control minds. But the book Guardrails was about how these conspiracy theories are all subplots in the meta script. These are all stories to keep you from finding out stuff is fake. So the guardrail is like you're going down this road, you start to drift. Left lane, right lane, doesn't matter, but if you go too far, you hit the rail and it keeps you on the road. Our perspective is over the rails. We're not being led down that road. We're not going with the flow at the rate they're going. We're on the other, we're outside of it. And the term guardrails resurfaced in 2024, 2023 actually. It really became a big term in the last few years, specifically with regard to its use in ChatGPT and Midjourney and other sites where they said we need to put guardrails in place so people don't create this content, render this content, or in other words, guardrailing is really about information flow control, mind control ultimately. So the way they guardrail AI is the same way they guardrail all of the programming that we're inundated with. So one of the guardrails, the bloody guardrail, is the false flag conspiracy theories that people are really dying in the event. So if you get past that bloody guardrail, then you can maybe have a more objective viewpoint here. Because it's a fundamental distinction when you recognize that the fundamental reality is what needs to be questioned, not the whodunit, but what is it? And we have correctly identified what it is. We're not chasing this or that red herring. We're not hunting Jesuits. There's not a Jesuit under every bed. I'm not here hunting down whatever particular scapegoat that someone finds compelling. Like, no, you're not in a position right now, informationally, you don't have enough information to be hunting down the culprit. That's always been a major misdirection campaign. Like, this guy did it, go hunt them down, find them. It's like, well, what did they actually do? Event by event by event, you analyze the fakery. It's like, well, what are they actually guilty of? Whoever's behind it. Guilty of hoaxing us? And when it comes to, like, the caller asked, like, who did 9/11? Yeah, Stanley Kubrick. Hollywood. Media. Government. Plenty of directors added their content to it. You have military involvement. There's complicity in so many interlocking agencies in this thing. It's like, well, who didn't do it? And then you look at the believers, the people who go with the flow. Well, they're part of the program. The audience participation is built into the system. It's an alt reality game. So who didn't do it? Who did 9/11? You did. Everyone who believes in it, everyone who faked it, you're maintaining the illusion. I didn't do it. I mean, I did at the time, but I'm not anymore. If you're still maintaining a fake event, you're carrying propaganda for it, you're part of the problem. Ryler says, those Erica Kirk skits are cringe. Oh yes, keeps people locked in a narrative. Erica Kirk derangement syndrome is all predicated on the idea that the Erica Kirk they've unveiled is real. Like, no. The person that has been unpacked by Candace Owens is a construct, a character. But it's a distraction. Because you think, oh, Erica Kirk was a honeypot that tricked Charlie Kirk into marrying her so she could take over TPUSA. No, TPUSA is a fake government grassroots organization, or astroturfed, fake grassroots controlled by government. Charlie Kirk was fake, not really a Christian. Erica Kirk is an actress. Candace Owens is an actress. Erica Kirk is not a honeypot who tricked Charlie Kirk. She's one of the tricksters. She knows Kirk got squibbed. She knows he's not dead. And that's a reasonable deduction. That's actually a rational conclusion. Logically speaking, given what we know about the event and previous events, there's no reason to think that Erica Kirk is a real character. In fact, her entire character arc from September to right now was predicted back in September in that TV show. To a T. Imagine a TV show comes out the day Charlie Kirk is shot about the youth Republican leader in a church, again, Kirk means church, getting shot in the neck. And then, guess who takes over his organization? The widow. And this is before Erica Kirk came out as the widow, taking over TPUSA. So I called that one in advance. And not only does the widow take over, but she fakes tears on TV at this big event, like the Charlie Kirk Memorial. Well, she's at this big event, big screens, and she fake cries on TV to win them over. So then she wins them over, and then she's accused later of having orchestrated the assassination from the beginning. Now, I only watched the first 4 episodes, and at the end of the 4th episode, it had a nuclear submarine, which I thought, that's interesting. Is that something to look forward to? But the fact of it is, we had called out Erica Kirk's fake character in advance. Yeah, Ryler, I agree with you. I mean, I recognize that. There is a channel on YouTube that has been doing the squib tests. Yeah, I say that they are shills. And I have very valid reasons for saying so. But I don't comment on them and I don't draw attention to them because I firmly think that these individuals are part of a limited hangout operation. And I don't want to lend them any credibility at this time. But rather, I'm observing them and their interactions with their subscribers, and it's telling, as you'll see. Soon, however, soon as in within the next 3 or 4 days, I'm going to be releasing my Charlie Kirk video. My Charlie Kirk, Erica Kirk video that doesn't hyper-focus on the special effects, but puts it into an understandable context. So that's something that needs to happen, and it will also include the squib stuff, but I'm not a limited hangout operative. I'm not guard railing, and we have a pretty good way of putting things in a context that will make sense of it all. Because a lot of people are like comfortable with the idea that he's not dead, but they can't separate it from world stage fiction. So they think, well, maybe Israel was going to kill him, so we had to fake his death in order to go into witness protection. Like, that's where they go, because they don't have the perspective to put it in the right context. And you can't have that perspective from main or alt. The world stage perspective is blinkered. It's not inclusive of systemic fakery, where UVU and Butler are in the same exact category. They see these things as isolated, as anomalous events, as the occasional fake thing. No, these are features, not bugs. The fakery is systemic. We have evidence, we're documenting it. We have 75 years of retro auto-hoaxing that we are developing in this project called The Great Deconstruction. We have the receipts, we have the evidence, and like it or not, we are correct in this. And if you're still clinging to phobias, if you're still a propaganda mule, time's almost up. Like, nobody's talking about false flag anymore. At least people figured that out. But I mean, a few mainstreamers are, but you can see there is a shift in situational awareness. PSYOPs are no longer fringe to talk about, but they're still not properly contextualized. You have to attach the PSYOP to the PSY war. You have to put the scripted event in the meta script. This does involve a bit of what you could consider to be some metacognition, thinking about how we think. Off-world stage perspective is a perspective where we, from an outside perspective, look at the programming. We look at the mediation process. We're not just believing it first, but we're looking at it as agenda-driven propaganda. And also, our assessment is inclusive of the provable collusion between government, entertainment, and news media. This collusion is built into the system. Again, feature, not bug. Systemic, entrainment. This is not a conspiracy theory. In fact, we're pretty much enemies of the conspiracy theorists. Like, the conspiracy theorists see themselves as resisting the mainstream. And the mainstream is resisting the conspiracy theorists. Well, guess what? We're opposed to both. I'm opposed to the conspiracy theories, and I'm opposed to mainstreamers. When I say I'm anti-anti, yeah, I quite literally mean that. And if you're anti, I'm asking you to reassess that. And if you're not willing to, and you want to be intransigent and continue to push back against what I'm saying, go for it. Because you're losing ground. You may not see it yet. It may not be obvious yet because we haven't reached the state of being completely unignorable. But as the off-world stage metastasizes, you're going to find you have less and less to stand on. Plain Dakota says, I wonder what would happen if we looked back on the Charlie Cook footage and checked for other things. Like what? I mean, yeah, you can. But one of the things I brought forth in the last year has been the concept of the blindfolded skeptic. You shouldn't need to rely on the visuals to decode events or to call the event fake. I can describe how that event is fake without relying to the footage itself. And I say that's the way we should approach it from now on. You need to approach future events with the presumption that you're not going to be able to tell if it's fake by looking at it. You can't be relying on the PSYOP perps to screw up so you have a clue. You should not rely on them giving you clues as a way for you to see through this thing. Otherwise, you're completely dependent on their fuck-ups instead of dependent on your own perception. You can perceive your way out of this thing. You can think your way out of it. You can use reason and logic. You don't need to rely on the visuals. That's a misdirection tactic. And that's why you have these people for months and months, frame by frame, looking at every person in the audience. And yet those people who spend all the time deconstructing the visuals have no clue. They still think it's Israel. They still think it's deep state. They have no clue. So no, the video stuff is useless. You should just treat it as useless. Especially because, again, the ability to fake stuff has become so advanced that that's not a reliable methodology. I could sit in a dark room with no video and make the case that 9/11 never happened. And you should be that way with every single event, because the skepticism that we're bringing into the equation here involves all the available information, all the context, including predictive and concurrent programming, and a host of hoax indicators. And so the burden of proof for claiming something is real now includes explaining away predictive concurrent programming and the hoax indicators. And if you can't explain those away, you don't have anything. Predictive programming is evidence of fakery. So let me ask you this, the anti-vaxxers out there who don't actually have a voice here but might be listening. There was so much predictive and concurrent programming for 2020. Why would you think it's real if predictive programming only ever predicts fakery? The fact that there is a predictive buildup in entertainment is proof positive you're dealing with a simulated event, a mass casualty simulation. So if you still think things are real, you're caught in their sim. You're in the internalized Truman Show. But we've created, I believe, a strong enough basis here for a breakaway. Like, we have broken away from it. And as time goes on, anybody clinging to these guardrails are going to have to independently confront these things and decide, do I want to continue to carry water for Big Brother? Do I want to be a propaganda mule? Do I want to continue to be a crisis actor? Do I want to continue to be part of their system? I mean, good intentions. I understand those are good intentions. You're trying to fight the good fight or whatever, but who was it that said good? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's certainly the case here. Anyway, thanks for the comments. I will send a newsletter tomorrow. And see, tomorrow's Friday the 8th. Yeah, hopefully by tomorrow we'll have our nothing burgers to discuss with regard to the UFO situation. All right, have a good evening.